I like Kevin.
I don't like Kevin.
And this is Tusk Grumps.
Hey!
Okay, welcome back to Anonymators Review. I'm Wesley Boone.
I'm Emily Strasser.
And we're gonna review Tusk.
Yep.
We just came back from watching the movie Tusk, Kevin Smith's new film. As I'm sure you could tell from our silly intro, I am a Kevin Smith fan. I've been for the longest time.
I am not.
And so I managed to convince Emily to come and watch the movie with me. I don't know if you want to start off with your overall opinions.
Yeah, I guess because, okay, it's not that I dislike Kevin Smith. I mean, I remember I liked Dogma when it came out, and what was the other? I think I didn't care for Red State.
Okay.
But that was just because it was a little bit too intense for me to really enjoy it.
That's surprising. I really thought you might have been into that movie.
I loved the concept. It was just the execution was just like this constant. I always felt like I was just like that tense.
Well, that's the idea, right? You're supposed to be tense. It is a tense movie. It's a thriller.
I don't like always feeling tense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just me. And like I was telling you, I was reading some reviews, and I knew this was going to be a terrible movie going in, and it was pretty bad. But I knew that going in. I don't know. Overall, it's not like I wouldn't say I enjoyed it. I wouldn't watch it again. Let's put it that way. But I don't know. For something, it was definitely different, and that was what you were telling me. Is that Hollywood is full of the same. Yeah. And you always hear people complaining about it's full of the same. This is definitely different. It kind of, it uses some of the sameness of movies in the sense of...
You know what it reminds me of? Like the directorship, and I know Kevin Smith is a fan of... oh man, I'm gonna forget his name. He wrote Quentin Tarantino. I know Kevin Smith holds Quentin Tarantino in very high regard, and it reminds me of that. It's like he watched other movies and drew from that inspiration to make this movie. And it was obvious the inspirations. You know, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm gonna take this inspiration and then create something that's got my flair to it, which I think he did too. The movie definitely is a Kevin Smith film, but it's a Kevin Smith film in the same way that Red State is a Kevin Smith film. For a quick rundown of how I felt with Red State was the movie didn't feel like a Kevin Smith film up until the very end where they had that monologue piece, and that's what I really enjoy in Kevin Smith movies is the monologuing, the sort of the witty banter. Yeah. That's what I really sort of go for. I know
was why I was surprised when you told me that Red State was a Kevin Smith film. Because, you were explaining to me Clerks was a Kevin Smith film, and so I'm like, okay, that kind of thing. So when you said Red State, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely a whole bunch of different, but I enjoyed Red State because there's a lot of things I liked about it, which, while talking to other people, I find they didn't like about it. What gets to me, or not gets to me in a bad way, what pulls me into the movies, Red State and Tusk, is the difference in storytelling. That's still Kevin's way of storytelling, but it's these different themes. Even with Clerks, Chasing Amy, Mallrats, Dogma, those movies, they did have the serious themes to it. I mean, they were very serious movies in their own little way, with heavy dick and fart jokes influenced by that Kevin Smith just loves. Jeez, I don't know how many times I'm going to name drop this guy, but I mean, it is his movie. But yeah, it's always somewhat lighthearted anyway. I mean, Dogma is very religious heavy. Clerks is, oh, my life as a 20-something is horrible and boring, you know. Mallrats was, I guess, just Mallrats. I mean, that is a comedy through and through. Chasing Amy, basically, I think, how did he say it? But basically, I mean, turning a lesbian straight, I mean, that's a weird premise, but quite serious because it's a whole love story type thing too. Yeah. So, you know, but it's there. So I don't think he's deviated too far. I think his comedy really shines out, like in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And then it starts going downhill by Jersey Girl. Didn't get much acclaim. Cop Out, not much acclaim. I haven't seen Cop Out, so I don't really know what it was like. But then stuff like Zack and Miri, again, a serious premise. Do people want to pay rent, but they don't want to work, so they decide to make porn movies, and then they end up falling in love anyway. And you know, it was different. I don't know if he wrote it. I think he just directed it. But it wasn't my favorite either. But again, I need to watch it again to sort of appreciate it more, maybe. Anyway, but my impressions with Tusk, I honestly had a good time with it.
You were embarrassed.
I was embarrassed, not because I was embarrassed, like, because in the movie there's, which we'll get to the spoilers at the end, like the end when we start talking, when we break it down.
Yeah.
But there's this point in the movie where it goes sort of very 70s action cop, like, you know,
oh yeah.
You know, detective cop, like running down the stairs, pointing his gun, and the camera like zooms out. Like that happened a lot towards, like, just after a certain reveal. Like there was a lot of camera panning and trucking that all of a sudden is like, I was not comfortable with for that type of film. But it was like, what is this? And so I just turned to Emily in jest. I was like, I'm sorry I put you through this, because it's like whenever anything goes like crazy silly, like when it's making these references, like these old 70s references or whatever, I'll always apologize to the person near me, because I'm like, I'm sorry you're going through this right now. I don't know why I do it. It's something that me and my friends, I guess it's just something in, because we used to watch like we used to go to the video stores and look for the worst box art we could find of a movie, and we would rent it. And man, that reminds me of a story. I'll tell you later, maybe.
Okay.
Well, now I might be intrigue people. No, I'm not going to tell anybody this story now, because it's not its space. We're talking about Tusk.
Yes.
So I have this like instinct of watching like these really old horrible movies and just laughing with my friends, and we would try. I mean, like everybody talks about the Room and Birdemic. I guarantee you I've seen worse.
Worse than Birdemic?
Yes, like the acting, that terrible. But like the thing is, it started off as us just watching kung fu movies, looking for bad acting kung fu movies with bad dubbing. That was the best. And as I said, the worse the box art, the better, because you know that's because they put no budget in the box office, so they're not trying to sell anything. And then we moved over to sort of like old. Like old American movies, like sort of the 60s to the 80s American movies, even early 90s stuff. You know, we would just look for whatever we could find. And like, I remember the movie, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that also like started off our path towards that was Raw Deal. What caught our eye was the movie poster. It's like, nobody gives him a raw deal. He got a raw deal. Raw Deal, the movie. I'm like, what is this poster? It is so ridiculous. So we had to watch that movie. Anyway, so that's what why I would apologize during that actiony cop sequence. It's more instinctual than anything else.
Oh, okay. I was just...
Because I didn't expect it to go silly. The movie does go silly at one point.
And it goes silly at like the most... At
the most serious time.
Yeah.
That I would say... Because I told you earlier when we were talking about it on the way back, the movie's very serious and gritty and thriller-tastic the whole way through, up to a certain point, and then it just goes like Benny Hill silly.
Yeah. Right?
Like, okay, no running through doors and none of that, but like what I mean is it's just like there's the 70s cop action sequence going on, and there's like these really heavy camera trucks, and then he sort of tries to ease back into sort of going into this thrillerish thing, but it becomes weird, angry action.
Yeah, because he tried to do like this whole like serious tone, especially toward the end.
And I thought it was working really well. I was convinced. I was in it. Like I was like, man, this is terrifying.
Yeah. I got a little bit like, because I knew what was going to happen, because I spoiled the movie for myself, because I was nervous. I've never really seen a horror film, not even a comedy horror, but like
you haven't seen Evil Dead?
No.
The original.
I have not.
Everybody talks about this new Evil Dead. I will find you. I have a certain set of skills. I will find you, and I will hurt you. Because that movie was not good, in my opinion. Well, okay, but you know what it is? It's like, I love Evil Dead 2 and 3 so much, and then it's like this new one came out, and I'm like, that's not Evil Dead. That's a movie with the title Evil Dead put on top of it. And it's like, I was just sad and angry. Sad and angry.
Okay, okay. You have to understand, I haven't watched a fraction of the movies that you've seen.
I am the cinemaphile.
I am not nearly the movie connoisseur that you are. And also I have a lot of anxiety, so...
I should talk with Joel a lot more. I know he watches a ton of movies.
Yes, anyway.
And Spencer even said he might be interested in coming on one of these, so we'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, I think...
But we never watch movies with him, so...
oh, yeah. Well, plus we were gonna watch it with Joel and Maria.
Oh, yeah, we were supposed to have a whole troupe coming with this movie. It was like... I think I invited like 7 people, and then... Yeah, and then it was just myself and Emily, and I was like, okay. I mean, I got no problem spending time alone with you, but it's just,
it's kind of fun to watch a...
movie in a group.
Well, especially if it's you remember, like, when we watched Sharknado together?
Exactly, that was also my thinking of it. It was like, let's all go watch this silly movie. Because, look, even Kevin knew it was a silly movie. I mean, I'm a little bit... I wonder why he's, like, a little disappointed that it didn't open so well, because, like, that's his opinion lately. It's like... You know, he was talking about on the podcast where it opened up. It didn't open very well, and for obvious reasons. I mean, it's a really weird premise. If you go up to, like, I mean, how many people look? Every time I invited somebody, they're like, "What's this movie?" I'm like, "Do you want to go watch Tusk?" And they're like, "What is it?" I'm like, "Oh, it's Kevin Smith's latest film." And they're like, "What's it about?" And it's like, "It's a man who turns into a walrus." And then I get this look. I get the same look every time. Like, what? What are you talking about? But that was Kevin's reaction the first time they were talking about the idea of the script and everything. So it was like, what is going on here? This is crazy, stupid.
And for you non-Kevin Smith fans, apparently what happened. Maybe it would be better if you told how he got.
Oh, the history. Okay, so. For those of you who, I guess, don't know Kevin Smith, he watched, he was reading, like, in his podcast, Smodcast, plug, because he friggin' needs it, like...
We're not getting paid for this, by the
way. He basically was reading over an article that he found on Gumtree, like the UK Gumtree, which caught, like, some internet notoriety, and basically the article read... Oh, I have led a crazy life, and I've now retired. At one stage, I was living in the harbour of Vancouver, like on some island off of Vancouver, and I made friends with a walrus, and we were best friends, and yada yada yada. And now I've come back, and he's obviously passed away. So, in order to live here in my house for free lodging, all I ask is that you wear a walrus suit, like an hour a day, and you don't talk. You just sit with me and eat fish. That's all I want from you. And so Kevin and...
I remember that story, too.
Yeah, so Kevin and his partner, Scott Mosier, laughed about it. They're like, oh, this is the signs of a serial killer. This is, like, crazy. And you can actually sort of hear the cogs turning. Scott's not so much into it, but Kevin's like, I want to do this. I have to do this. It's like... And it became this thing, and it was like, to me, it was so inspirational because it was an idea. It's a ridiculous, silly idea. Who's going to make that movie?
Apparently Kevin Smith.
But like, if not for Kevin Smith, who was going to make that movie? And it's a movie he said he wanted to see this movie. And I'm like, I actually want to see this movie too. Yes, it's ridiculous, but I like ridiculous movies. I like, and now, again, my words from earlier, in a world of Hollywood upchuck, where it's just this constant spewing of same old stories over and over again, just with different characters... And then Kevin comes along and tries something different, you know, maybe telling the story in a different way, because I know there's the whole thing about 7 stories told differently, but like this was interesting to me. I guess movie fans would go watch this. Like, people who watch movies casually won't really be interested in this.
I can't imagine they would be.
Yeah, so in the same way that I would go and search out horrible movies just for the sake of watching horrible movies, because I enjoy that. I enjoy watching movies, and I enjoy laughing at things, but I also enjoy sometimes when... Like, in this movie, too, I really loved Kevin's editing. I don't know what people were complaining about. I thought the editing was interesting. The footage was interesting. There was 1 or 2 shots I thought were silly. Even the serious shots. There was this one truck up where... Like, it was just where... I'm not exactly sure where it happened. But the camera was outside of the house, and it trucked upwards off the corner of the house, and I don't know why. Like, it was just it was a ridiculous scene, but to me it made no sense. For like, it didn't add anything. Everything else, like the scene where the two, like, and this is again where Kevin Smith shines. He shines in conversation. He is, in my opinion, he is brilliant when people are talking, and he's good with like building the talking heads scenes, like during the whole introduction of that of Howard Howe, where he's talking to Mr. Mustache, whatever his name is, I can't remember now, but the main character, I guess, and how the two of them are like talking, and then the cuts from there and the different camera angles, and that was interesting to me.
Wasn't his name Wallace or something?
Yeah, Wallace, yeah. And the thing is, it's like, I think Kevin's, like, I think years of working on stuff like Clerks, you know, and doing the whole conversation thing, I think that's where his strong suit is. But it is so great to see him step out of that comfort zone and try something different. Sure, it might not succeed, but who gives anybody the freak... I'm not saying people shouldn't critique. That's a whole different level. I'll critique this movie. I can tell you exactly what I did like and didn't like. I'm just impressed that he tried it and he went ahead and he did something.
Yeah.
He did something that no one else was going to do. You're never going to see this movie again. Birdemic you're never going to see again.
Yeah.
And I do kind of put these two movies like sort of in the same... I don't say that... I mean, because, look... Tusk had a way bigger budget, way better actors. I mean, the actors were really, really good.
Yeah, that was something about the other reviews that I read, like the and that was what really struck me too, was the acting was really good, actually. Mm-hmm. And as speaking from a writer's perspective, I may not be the world's best writer, but that's what's really weird to me, is that the story, like, works. Like, just on... If I were to just tell you, okay, these are the story arcs, like, it works really well. I think and I guess we'll get more of this into story, is that... But I'm not giving away any spoilers by saying this, really, because... The walrus thing happens like halfway through, and I mean, if you read any...
Well, we're already given away the premise. It's a man that turns into a walrus, so...
but he doesn't turn into a walrus of his own will. You know, he is being turned into a walrus by the serial killer character. And I think the only thing that really kind of bugged me, that just, like... tugged in the back of my head, was like, okay, if you want to turn a man into a walrus so much, why don't you turn you into a walrus? But that's a whole other issue that kind of deals with story too. So I guess we'll get to the story part a bit later. Is there anything? There is one scene that I don't know. It was such a tiny, minuscule thing, but there's a character that comes in about halfway through the film, who is the French Canadian. We'll tell you who he is a bit later, because apparently they want to... He
goes uncredited, yeah.
Yeah, they kind of keep him on the down low, so we'll get to that in the spoiler section of the podcast, but there's a French Canadian homicide detective who comes in, and they're doing a flashback scene, and for some reason the camera just starts trucking a little bit, and then it cuts. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the only, like, editing error that really stood out to me. I'm sure if I went back and watched it again, there might be a few things. In terms of editing, too, the thing that people were critiquing the film about was that, you know, the serial killer character, he has a tendency to just talk. Like, just talk and talk and talk. And so the critique was, oh, you just let him talk and it doesn't really fulfill anything to the story. I have to disagree. I
disagree with that attitude too.
Yeah, like, because everything that he said was not uninteresting. Mm-hmm. It was actually quite interesting, and it was interesting in different ways in different parts of the film. Like, it just showed his character in the sense that, you know, here's a man who's been through a lot, and I don't know, it was, like, I felt it added to his character, personally.
Yeah, definitely.
That's just me.
Yeah, it's... Like, I don't know, I haven't read any of the reviews yet. The only thing I'm aware of is that, like, it opened badly, from what I hear from Kevin Smith's podcasts. So, I mean, it came from a podcast idea, and I was intrigued by it. I've been looking forward to it coming out. You know, I wasn't expecting much. I wasn't expecting as Kevin Smith would like say, I wasn't expecting a Matrix film, because he always relates himself to. It's like, you didn't make the Matrix. It's like, okay, but yeah, it's no Matrix, but it's interesting. It's different. You know, it's nice to go see something a little bit more creative. And so, yeah, I would honestly suggest people go watch it. Or, you know, like, I'd strongly urge it, you know, be like, go watch the movie, give it a shot, because, you know, if you're bored of the same old nonsense... I mean, the other movie I was giving you an example with as well, which didn't do that well, but, I mean, for some reason everybody knows. Look at The Men Who Stare at Goats, which is again, it's also a really ridiculous premise, but it was a movie that, like, you watch it and you're like, okay, I've seen this movie. It was silly. It didn't solve anything. It didn't tell a story that concluded or anything. It was just, there was this movie and it had the weirdest ending. And that's how I felt like with this movie too. It was like, oh, okay. Like, I bet you if it was like a new director or like, man, I don't know. Like, I bet you if it wasn't Kevin Smith, there would have been certain, it's like, I think people just like to pick on him. I feel like, but I mean, you don't even know him and you don't like the film, so I don't know. There's
it's definitely not a film I would watch again, except for maybe like
diagnosis reasons.
Yeah. Just because of the premise, like I can't get behind the premise of a man who turns into a walrus.
But I mean, like, does that not intrigue you? Like, is it not? It's like, where are you going to get that elsewhere?
That's true,
right? I mean, it's like it is something to scoff at, but if you sit and think about it, it's like, okay, well, what do you want to watch? Oh, you want to watch another action film? Do you want to watch another spy film? Do you want to watch another American war film? Do you want to watch another, like, I mean, even the Pixar movies are getting boring. They're getting samey. Do you want to watch another Madagascar film? And and like what I was saying, in a world where, like, there's all this stuff popping out constantly that's the same old drivel, and then people standing on the sidelines crying havoc. Oh, where is our new thingy? No, Hollywood never tries anything different. And then somebody does try something different, and then everybody shits on him. Now, I will admit that it's probably different people. The people who are bitching at Hollywood for doing the same old stuff aren't the people bitching at Kevin Smith for trying something different. But it's still, you hear the shouts on both sides. You never hear praise on either side. You don't hear, oh, well done to the people who made Madagascar, because Madagascar 4 was very interesting, you animated it well. You don't hear people saying, oh, well done, Kevin Smith, you tried a new premise. You only hear the bad. You only hear the negative critics, and it's just, I don't know, it's a bummer.
Well, what about you then? Did you, like, genuinely enjoy the film?
Okay, from a critical standpoint, there's a lot that I could think that the film could have done better.
Yeah,
now,
like, I could see, like, although I wouldn't say that it was, like, it's so hard to say whether or not I enjoyed it, because there were parts that I genuinely liked. Like, there was a lot of, like, the comedy, there was a couple of really good comedy bits that I thought, oh, this is really clever. But again, I guess we'll get more into the things we liked and didn't like in the story bit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so from a critical point of view, it's more, like, while I was watching the movie, and I mean, as much as I love what I've learned at Van Arts, like, I blame Van Arts for, like, now how I watch movies, and they said this was going to happen at the beginning of the year. Remember, they were like, when you start, after we teach you, you're going to be so critical of scenes now, and I am. It's like, I'm very, like, I don't like that, I don't like that, like, as I said, there was some trucking stuff I didn't like, and I mean, I know that's minuscule, but, then there was, stuff, like, how I think, like, the one scene I really liked, and this is really early on, where Wallace and Howard are talking to each other, like, when they first, when he sits down and starts drinking the tea, and and Wallace starts falling asleep, because of the tea, and I mean, that's obvious. So, but the thing is, it's like, my negative critique for that was, we knew it was the tea, but he was playing it off like he was getting, like, I felt like he should have made it look like Wallace was getting bored, instead of, oh, it's the tea. But it was so obvious it was the tea from the get-go. It was like, hey guys, look at this prop, this is the thing that's going to affect Wallace, plunk, and then that's what happened. It was like, it was a very centered thing. Now, that being said, if that was the case, then that's fine, because then nothing too wrong with it other than it being obvious. I just think it was too obvious.
I guess for me, that part did drag on a little bit, just in the part of Wallace. Not so much
but that's what I liked. I liked that Wallace dragged it on, because the thing is, think about it, like, you're getting bored, right?
Oh.
Wallace is getting tired. He's like, and it's like, and then that's what I was trying to link it. Like, make Wallace, quote unquote, bored by making the audience member bored. and not like you were bored. The stories were interesting, but it did drag on, and it was like, and then the way the Howard character was talking was very dragging on, and then he would describe something with no enthusiasm, but this is how it was done, and you get on with the story, man. Like, you know, and Wallace is like, yeah, and he wants to be interested in the story, but it's, again, because you knew it was the T, it's like that's what pulled me sort of out of that. Like, I wish it. I don't know how he could have done it, that it wasn't obvious the tea was there, but it was obvious the tea was there. It was like, it wasn't like he was trying to hide the tea, or it was like, oh, here's some tea, and then they're both drinking the tea. One guy's drinking the tea out of the same teapot.
Yeah.
It's very, you know. So, like, that's how I see the film. Like, there's this one point of the film that I like, and at the same time I can tell you why I don't like it. And that's how I'll break it down a little bit with the story.
Do you just want to jump into story, or do you have more?
One more thing.
Okay.
Sound-wise, because, you know, so, I mean, we've got sort of a bit of the editing out of the way, and then the sound, like, just, and then I guess a little bit of history. I want to talk about the film too, but because there's a lot of little callbacks to his podcast that he makes in, like, little, because the movie's set in Canada. And so with the sound, I like the ooh-ah, like, you know, the ringtone for the cell phones. The ooh-ah, you know. Now, More Margaritas, that's a song from his Hollywood Babylon podcast, where it's I can't remember what the song intro is, but it's basically Ralph Garman, who was the detective that, like, wasn't sure whether the two were telling the truth about him. That was Ralph Garman.
That guy.
And, like, he does, like, voice impressions, as you could hear his amazing Canadian accent. And he does I mean, who is it? He does voice impressions, and, like, they like, fans mix it up and make songs and everything. That was one of the songs from fans.
Okay.
And so that was interesting. Yeah, but there was a lot of good ambience in the film, I felt. Now where I say there's good ambience, like, and I do this with bands as well, like music bands. I get so into a band, and I'll be like, oh, but you use this one sound too much, and he did this in this movie too. That sort of that shock, that you know, like, I've noticed something.
Yeah.
What's that over there? And that happened a lot in the film. There was a lot of that really bass heavy. Oh, okay, now you've noticed something, or this is supposed to be the scary moment. And I know why you're supposed to do that, because bass is like, it gives us an instinctual fear. But at the same time, it's like, you've done it too much. I'm not scared anymore. Like, I got to the point where, and I think maybe, I wonder if that was part of it. Because, as I said, the movie gets very lighthearted towards the end.
It gets...
I don't think that was on purpose.
Oh.
I can't think that was on purpose.
Okay.
But, look, Kevin Smith, I think he's a very clever man, and I'm a very genuine man, and I really enjoy him. But I wouldn't give him that much credit to, like, plan the movie around like that. Not this movie. Like, if it was Clerks 3, you know, then I'd be like, okay, maybe he planned, like, all these steps around it, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. He's fooled me, at least. Anyway, so a couple of interesting tidbits. Just before we go, what I can remember. There's a lot of, like, so, like, the whole not see party, which people pronounce not see party.
Yeah.
Don't ever say Hitler in the airport. There was, I liked the background pictures. Like, it was very reminiscent of, like, the art that gets done for his podcast and stuff. So his Smartcast radio and all that stuff. And then there was the scene with the Gimli glider, which is a restaurant. They called the Gimli Slider, which is a Canadian, like, hero story I was explaining to Emily a while ago. I'll give a very short version of it, but look it on Google, because it's an amazing story. Basically, these two pilots, Canadian pilots, were flying. They ran out of gas and electricity on the plane, and the one pilot, like, calculated where they were. The other pilot remembered that there was an airfield nearby that should be abandoned, and then the other pilot calculated how to land them, and then they both landed the plane with 0 casualties, I believe. So, like, they saved everybody just by these crazy coincidences, and the one, and it was called the Gimli glider, because I believe it's the Gimli airfield or something. And it was like this amazing story. And so there's a restaurant in the show, and I don't know, Kevin Smith decks out restaurants crazy good because he did it in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. There's this restaurant called Moomins, which is like this weird McDonald's-esque restaurant.
Oh.
And it's also like decked out completely. It's got like a mascot and this big cup thing. I was like, what the hell? And he did this with Gimli Slider as well. And then they got the Gimli Slider burger, and there was like logo in the background with the two pilots like riding on a burger plane. And I thought that was really clever. I wonder if the whole squashing of the burger meant anything.
Maybe that was just the actors.
Maybe.
Because that was another thing, is that the actor was sort of given... he was given the task of just being this, like, kind of goofy character, too. So maybe that was... but that just, again, spoilers, because from what I did read about this movie, they wanted to keep that particular character on the down low.
Yeah, it wasn't announced until after the movie was released. But we'll get to that in a minute. I'll release a little tidbit at the end of that. Okay, so we're going to get into the spoiler section. So from here on out, we're just going to talk about what we remember of the movie, break down what we liked and disliked, and then it's going to be the end of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the movie starts off. There's a podcaster. And that's the thing about Kevin. Like, he writes what he knows, and right now he knows podcasting. It's his big passion right now.
I figured.
So that's why he's this character. It's like the same thing with all of his previous movies. Clerks comes from him being a clerk. Mallrats comes from, I think he said, from him being, like, he just loved hanging out in malls. Like, Chasing Amy has something to do with his love interest. Dogma had something to do with his religious experiences and sort of, I guess, losing his religion and everything. That's where that whole cup water thing comes from. I don't know if you remember, but it's like when you're a little kid, like, faith is like a glass of water. When you're a little kid, one little sip is enough. But as you get older, you need a bigger glass of water with more water. And often people don't fill that glass up and stuff. And that's how he felt. And so, and then, of course, a shit monster appears and all that. So, So podcaster Wallace, whatever his name is, surname is, Wallace goes off, and throughout the movie there's like little snippets of him sort of being an asshole.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of you get introduced to this character, and he's like, whatever, okay, he's going on this adventure, and then you can sort of see where it's leading up to his demise, and that's...
Oh, it should also be mentioned too that
lots of Canadian stereotypes.
Well, no. The entire reason, the entire reason he went to Canada in the first place was because there was this kid who got popular on a YouTube video in the movie, not in real life.
Yeah.
But there was a kid, though I wouldn't be surprised if
it's based off the Star Wars lightsaber kid.
I did get that reference, but this kid is in his basement, and I don't remember what the reference is.
He's swinging a sword around, and he's just like, he's called the Kill Bill Kid.
That's it.
And he's swinging a sword around, and then he chops off his own leg. It's very CG, like it was the CG.
Yeah. It is,
and actually a pretty good foreshadowing if you think about it.
Ooh, I just made that. Ooh, that just suddenly, like lightning. Okay, yes. Anyway, okay. So this kid gets popular off this YouTube video, and he just gets like 1 million views or something. And so so this guy Wallace decides that he wants to travel to Canada to do a podcast with this kid. When he gets there, he finds out
the kid committed suicide.
So like,
and then he's like all pissed off. He's like angry that this kid wasted his time. So he flew to Canada and and then they start like sort of doing these little snippets, and where like here and there, like it's where Wallace is kind of, but like it gets gradually worse, right? Because it's like there he's like, he's just angry. I was like, I don't mean to be angry, but it's like I'm down $500 and I'm in Canada and I want to be here, and it's like it's all sort of this anger, but you still sort of feel for him. You're like, I guess if I was in that situation, I'd be angry too. And then they have a cut back to him talking to his girlfriend, and he's like, but my friend doesn't want me to go doesn't want you to come with me, and then you're like, why are you being controlled by your friend? Don't be a dick to your girlfriend. And then it's like, and then another cut happens later where it's his friend's like, why don't you take your girlfriend with you? And he's like, well, then I can't get roadhead from random chicks off the street, and it's like, and that's what I like, and she won't give it to me. So it's like he gradually gets worse as a character, which actually makes sense with him losing his humanity. So it's like, he is kind of a monster. I wouldn't make him a wild animal, but he is kind of like, like as far as decent human beings go, he's definitely he gradually loses that. You know, that's actually, I didn't make that connection until now.
Well, that's why I said before, the story, like, as a story, like, if I were just to write this down on paper, I know so many professors back when I was at the university, back when I was at the university, I know so many professors who would probably just, like, they would just drool over this story. You know, so I say as a story, it's actually really intriguing.
Yeah.
Executed as a movie, it gets a little wobbly, you know. And I think it was just because, you know, I guess we'll get more into this later, but for me it was because it was done as a comedy horror, which I think can make it, but it did kind of feel like it was a thriller in the first half and then kind of a comedy in the second half.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't merge them well. I'll definitely give you that, because like when I think comedy horror, I think Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Even Evil Dead 3.
Like,
Evil Dead 3 is not that horror, but Evil Dead 2's definitely got that horror element to it. And then, but the comedy's in the way that there's the overacting and there's the silly references and the silly situations, like when he cuts off his hand and he's like, you know, and it's like, and it's just like sort of the overreactions, and that's what makes it funny. But the situation doesn't change that; it's like very drastic.
Yeah.
This was a horror movie for a while, like, or thriller.
Yeah.
Thriller movie, because a horror is like, I don't actually even know, because a thriller just like tenses you up, right, and scares you. It can be anything from a murder to a spooky monster, whereas a horror movie, I guess, tends to be monster movies and, you know, I guess serial killers. Like, I don't know.
Like, I could see,
because you can have a horror movie that's not scary almost. You know, I mean, like, look at the Halloween movies. I don't know if they're supposed to be scary, but they weren't to me. Whereas
nothing
like,
scares you.
Whereas thrillers, like, they can tense you up, you know. I mean, it's.
And I did feel like as a thriller, it worked really well.
Thriller.
It is Halloween.
Spooky month. What did I call it? Octoberween. There we go.
Yeah, October. Okay. Yeah, because, like, as a thriller, and I think that was kind of what was really fascinating to me in the beginning of the film, the problem was the consistency was just a little bit all over the place, and I think that was why...
Like coconut.
What?
The consistency is all over the place.
Oh.
Sorry.
You see what I have to deal with on a daily basis.
Ba-dum-bum.
Anyway, so I guess we should continue more on with the story. So what happens is he ends up in Canada, and then he's in the we call it a restroom where I'm from,
Bathroom.
but a bathroom or a wash
toilet.
Toilet where you're
Latrine.
from. It's
shitbox.
It's a washroom in Canada.
Where you go make poops and wash your hands.
Anyway, so he's in a washroom in Manitoba, and he sees this ad.
Manitoba, eh?
And he sees this ad for... Do you want to tell the story?
Sorry.
Okay. So he sees this ad for this old guy, which is essentially like, it's basically what was it called? Gumtree? The website where...
well, yeah, it's the Gumtree.
Yeah, it's posted like on this wall, and so he's like really excited because he thinks that he thought the trip was a bust, and now he's like, I stumbled onto a gold mine. I found this really interesting person that can be on my podcast. So he goes into the woods and he finds this old guy who's in a wheelchair, and you know, we talked about the part with the tea. Basically, he drugs the guy with the tea, and well, I think it's pretty much revealed at that point. It is like, why would you be a man when you can be a walrus? And it's like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's like, so gradually, you know, it starts off like, okay, so he loses his leg because he's told that a spider had, like a brown recluse had bitten it, and a doctor had to come and remove the leg. Didn't make sense because, you know, you obviously have to go to hospital for that type of thing. And then he starts
figures out
figuring things out. Yeah.
He figures that you know, because at first he thinks that the guy's just trying to kill him, but then he later finds out, no, he's trying to turn me into a walrus.
Yeah, some kind of animal.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's and you know, he's gradually sort of driving the guy also like slowly insane. I mean, especially once he has this full-on walrus costume, but he still has to chop the guy up a bit, like remove one of the legs. I guess, which will be used for the tail flopping, I guess, because if you think about it, he probably merges the legs together and then You know, so you have
that was what I thought it was.
And then like he merges the shot, like the elbows to
the sides,
to the torso, and then like so you can like flap with the hands in front of him, puts him in the suit, cuts off his tongue, realigns his jaw, and then that was freaky. The whole outfit, like the first reveal of the outfit, because it does look gross. But the thing is, the first zoom out, the first truck out of the, I better not say zoom out, otherwise Charles will get me. The first truck out of the shot, like where you can see it, like sort of, it's like it looks at different parts of the suit, and then it trucks out, and then you can see it's this rubber suit.
Yeah.
And then that's immersion pulled out, and then that particular truck out bothered me because it looked old, like old-fashioned-y, like that whole like like it was just, I don't know how to explain it to me. It just looked out of place. Like this whole movie's not that dynamic. You know, the editing's dynamic. Like things are cut up interestingly, but this part all of a sudden now the camera starts moving and like moving around. And then when the kids come down, and this is where this action scene starts taking place soon as well, because then his girlfriend and his best friend, who are sleeping with each other, like are running and trying to find him, and they're running around Canada and all these weird stereotypes happening. And this is where they find Guy Lapointe, or
yes.
Guy Lapointe.
And now we can finally say who it was.
Johnny Depp. It's Johnny Depp. He's like this hidden, whose daughter and Kevin Smith's daughter are the clerks. Hey, in the movie, which Kevin was like laughing because while he was like shooting it, like his daughter and Depp's daughter were like doing the phone thing, and he's like in their clerks outfits, and he's like 20 years later, I just wish I could be shooting this in black and white, because Clerks 1 is in black and white, and yeah, so it's. Yeah, Johnny Depp, he's in there, he's playing this really weird French-Canadian
homicide detective.
Yeah, who's drunk and crazy, and I don't know what's going on there.
It's and that was kind of the other thing that struck me, because you say Kevin Smith is trying to do something different, and yet here he has Johnny Depp essentially playing Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think that's more Johnny's fault.
You think so?
I think Johnny's lost a little bit of his different acting, because like he plays two roles now. He plays the crazy goofy guy, aka
Jack
Sparrow, and then he also plays like weird romantic love interest guy, who's very suave and gentlemanly, and it's like, I don't know. I think that's more of a Johnny Depp thing. That being said, it did take me a few seconds to click that it was Johnny Depp. I was like, wait, this guy looks familiar, but he's got like all the weird hair in different places, and he looks sweaty and grimy. Not what you'd expect of Johnny Depp, really.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't even be surprised if a casual moviegoer saw this, and then it wasn't until like almost toward the end of the film, that's Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Like, because it took me a few seconds.
Because he didn't do any of the weird hand gestures that he does, like as Jack Sparrow. It was very sort of like, even when he's walking, and like when he was being interviewed before he got fired as the detective, like. He's very. It was just that outrageous accent was even more outrageous. I felt offended for the French.
The French Canadians specifically.
Yeah. So, that was like a weird little surprise. But from a little history on that, a little trivia. Apparently, from what I could tell, I don't know the exact history, but it was sort of a last-minute add-on. Like Johnny Depp did kind of like just make a random appearance. Like I think when Kevin was like throwing the script around, it like intrigued a lot of people. Like Haley Joel Osment was like, "Oh, this is very interesting." They like everybody who is in the film was interested in the script. They were like, "Wow, this is a very interesting, different script." So, bringing me back to my earlier point is that like it definitely intrigues a certain person. Because it's not a normal script. Yeah. It's not even a different script. It's a weird script. It's like, what is this? And it's going to be made with a pretty decent budget and modern, editing styles, and it's going to be like, this is one of, like, I think it's a cult classic. I think it's a cult classic. This is going to be one of those movies people are going to watch 20 years from now, and they're going to be like, yeah, this was actually a pretty fun movie. I can see what he was trying to do, whatever. And it's not like he didn't have the budget for it. He could have made more money if he wanted to and put more money into it. But, like, he made his profit back. Like, even though it didn't open strong, he made his profit back. Everybody got paid. They covered the advertising. What more does he want? Now everything from here on is profit. Fine, he didn't make a $20 million, like... opening weekend.
Yeah.
where in like today's like Hollywood standards, if you don't open with $60 million, you fucking failed. But like he's as a quote unquote indie film developer, which I guess he doesn't want to be called anymore. But that's why I see it still. I mean, it's still very indie in its presentation and its conceptualization. If you look at it from that point of view, like if it was you and I who made this film, I'd be immensely proud of this film. It's different. It tells a different story. It's edited at a really high quality.
It definitely it did strike me like, and that was another thing that I was reading about with the other reviews, is that it felt like a movie that he made for himself. Like, it wasn't a movie that was for everyone. It was just a movie that was made. It was like, look, here's my idea. If you don't like it, then whatever. But those
are his words too. Like in his podcast, he was like, "Who's going to make this movie? I want to see this movie." Those were his words. But who's going to make it? No one. I'm going to have to make this movie. He made this movie for himself. You are 100% correct. This is a Kevin Smith movie directed for Kevin Smith. By Kevin Smith. That's what it had to be. And so I think the only people who would truly like it are really not necessarily diehard Kevin Smith fans, but Kevin Smith fans.
Yes.
You know, it's just, you have to enjoy Kevin Smith. You have to enjoy his subtle, and if you spell subtle with like flaming red letters and you know it smacked you in the forehead in the shape of a penis, that's how Kevin Smith does subtle like dick and fart jokes. You know, if you appreciate those type of things, then I think you'll like this movie. Again, I would still say you should go watch it, or rent it, or whatever. Like get it on Netflix in the future.
It'll probably get on Netflix.
I'm surprised it's not already, because I know he was a big fan of video on demand. Like he did it with Red State.
Well, it's still in theaters, so.
Yeah. Well, Red State wasn't in theaters, I don't think. Or it was, but it was like a very specific tour. Whereas this was like there was a particular release.
Oh.
But yeah, so back to the story. So where were we? The Johnny Depp character comes in. They actually start figuring out clues how to get to the thing, and then this weird, actiony 70s cop action like TV series, not even movie, like sequence starts happening where they shoot the door, like shoot a door open, and then they're like the two characters like pose like Charlie's Angels style, like out the door. Then they run around, and then they like look down a passage, like a stairway, and they look down and the camera like truck zooms out and like and then you know it's like this weird like why this all of a sudden, and it starts at that point where the camera trucks out on the walrus suit.
Yeah, it's basically once the walrus suit is revealed,
all sense goes up, like whatever sense was left goes out the window. Like it's like, well, now it's just a silly movie.
Yeah. And
then that's what sort of bugs me. And I think there's a reason for it. And I don't know what that reason is. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
You're not Kevin Smith.
I don't know, man. Like, it's just because, yeah, as I say, like the suit, I think if he kept it a thriller a little bit, I think if you just kept it a thriller towards the end, like I would have liked it maybe a little bit more. Say, from the suit reveal, they don't show the full suit up front. They do the whole thing where they're like, you can see like him drooling, and you can see sort of like his eyes, and like you know this madness, and like then you see parts of the suit like that I could understand, and then
because the reveal felt kind of anticlimactic almost, because like the going into it was like you see all these like bloody tools, and you see pieces of skin.
Like that part where he's lying on the tool shed like that, or tool shed, but like the table, and he's got like his arm fucking like all mangled, and his one leg's removed, and the other leg's all cut up.
Yeah, and it was and it was
like that was interesting.
It was kind of weird because I remember like pretty much everything in the beginning was like super serious, and there wasn't too much. There was less comedy, more thriller. And then after the walrus reveal, the only thriller part of it was the fact that the serial killer was still a serial killer.
Yeah. And then he tried to drown the guy. Well, not drown, train him to swim as a walrus, but you know the whole drowning sequence.
Oh yeah, and there was that the other walrus suit, the skeleton.
I think there was like a few in there. There's like 3 or 4 skeleton like walrus suits below.
I was so completely fixed on the one with the eyeball still in it. I was just like, oh, why?
And then yeah, like the whole. It was, and then when the serial killer dons a walrus suit,
Oh, that was just...
That was, I don't know what the fuck is. I mean, again, at this point, everything's supposed to be crazy. Like, if you put yourself in that genuine situation, it's like, what the hell, man? It's crazy balls. It's insane. It's like if you were mangled and malformed into a walrus suit, and then this other guy puts on a walrus suit and tries to walrus battle you. And it's like, you know, like, and at this point, the main character Wallace, his mind is completely destroyed.
Yeah, it's like shattered.
He has lost his humanity for a bit. Well, for the rest of the film, I guess.
Too bad he wasn't a manatee. Then he lost his humanity. I'm sorry. I've been wanting to make that joke for a while.
Ever since the beginning.
I really have. Because I almost called him a manatee at some point.
Oh my.
I was like, oh wait.
Well, anyway. So they fight. Wallace does lose his humanity, like he just completely loses it, kills the guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that also plays part in with him having lost a lot of it in the beginning, right? Because it's like he was a dick. Like it could only have worked with an asshole, like lost his mind.
And I did mention to you at some point that like another review that I read that I disagree with, which is the fact that he's made to like Wallace's character is made to be just a jerk. Like he's just a straight up jerk. Mm-hmm. And you know that was something that you talk about in
sympathy.
Yeah, it's something you talk about in creative writing, where it's like you want to feel sympathy for the characters, but it's like I don't think it would have added anything to the story if he was made to be a sympathetic character.
Not at all. In fact, it wouldn't have worked in the sense of the story then, because as I think my analysis is correct in the sense that you're watching Wallace degrade as a decent human being already through the film by his own actions, by his own lifestyle choices.
Yeah.
And then even like the serial killer guy does mention like, oh, we are defined by our actions and yada yada yada. Mm. And then it's like I think like it could like because how many times did he try and do it before? But he was doing it on Canadians, right? And they're nice people.
Oh no!
And so it's like, but the thing is that it wouldn't have worked with a nice person. It wouldn't work like so. You needed this American to come in. You needed, like, because they're loud and rambunctious, as you know. And...
Cough.
Emily's American. Anyway, so... but it makes sense, right? It's like... So I think that works. He could have only lost what was left of him if he had lost so much before.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, it failed with everybody else because, they couldn't have their minds broken. They hadn't had it destroyed up to that point.
And see, that's why I say if I were to go up to my creative writing professors and I say I have this really great story and it works as a story and it's about a man who loses his humanity, and I like my professors would have just been like, oh, that's amazing, oh, it's wonderful, except it's about him becoming a walrus. What? Like, but
that again, I love that. I love that moment. That what the hell are you talking about? He turns into a walrus. Like, is it a comedy? Is it like a... Because you say turn into a walrus, you think 3D effects, right?
No, but actually it kind of works... actually, there was another story in which a man turns into something that is not a human, and it's Kafka's The Metamorphosis, but he was made as a sympathetic character, right?
Who? No, in what?
Have you never read The Metamorphosis?
Yes, I have. Okay, yes. Are you talking about that weird fucking...
Where he turns into a cockroach.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to...
I think there's a movie too.
Is there?
I think so. I haven't seen it, but I think
I know that there's a graphic novel by Peter...
maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, because there was a graphic novel that came out by Peter Cooper. I think it was wonderfully done. I'll if I ever get my hands on it,
But you see, like, in that, though, he doesn't become crazy.
Yes, he
Whereas this one, it's a different... Like, so fine, you can maybe take that story as a base, which I don't think it had any influence, at least not knowingly, from what Kevin was doing. Whereas, again, it's just... It makes all sense. And then the ending... I mean, them saving, and then that whole lifting up the shotgun, and then 1 year later... Because, they aim the shotgun at his face, girls freaking out in the background, and then it goes 1 year later, and then Wallace is in this off-track... exotic animal sanctuary. I guess the only one they've probably set it up just to keep him alive, and he's still very animalistic. And his girlfriend cries out, the ex-girlfriend, I guess, at this point. I still love you. And then it's like then it flashes back to something that the serial killer says is like, oh no, it wasn't the serial killer.
No.
Somebody, like, where they mentioned, with the girlfriend. But the girlfriend, but it was a flashback. But a flashback to the girlfriend where she's talking about crying. Like, he says, no, crying's for babies. And then the girl's like, I found my grandfather crying, and he said, you must cry because it separates us from the animals. And, like, that's the last thing that happens, is there's, like, this tear that falls off of Wallace's eye, which, again, great, because he still has some retention of his, I guess, humanity. I think that shouldn't have happened. I think it would have been stronger if he didn't cry. Like, if you think about it, because then he's completely gone. Like, he just looked, there's, like, no tear. And I
actually kind of wanted, and this is probably a horrible thing to say, but I almost kind of feel like he should have died. Because, but then again, he wouldn't have, but then again, I guess the single tear thing did work in the sense that he lost his humanity and now he has to pay the consequences. Maybe? I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm thinking too. Like, I mean, is it not his comeuppance for being an asshole this whole time?
Yeah.
He does apologize to his girlfriend. He's like, I'm really sorry I treated you this way, and I don't make it out alive, just know this, but, like, it's... There's a stronger story here that I think that a lot of people didn't click on, that, like, people watch the movie and jump straight onto the forums to bitch about. I think it's a lot more enjoyable than... I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it. I didn't regret it. Like...
For me, it was just sort of a constant barrage of facepalm moments, like, oh my god, they actually did that.
Yeah, but...
I guess it was just, for me, it was the shock of it. Like, and it wasn't... Like, and it wasn't done in the sense to shock people, because the things in the movie that were shocking have been done before, so it was just kind of like, it's nothing new. The shock for me, I guess, was the execution of it. In the way that it, like... I don't know. It like I said, it felt schizophrenic, and it was a thriller one half of the movie, and then a comedy in the second half. But it was still trying to hang on to this thriller thing. I totally see how it could have worked, but I don't think it was quite there. Maybe kind of half baked, where it didn't quite.
That's funny you say that, because Kevin was probably high at the time.
Yeah, he was. Oh, he totally was.
He's always high.
I think he was.
He says he gets, like, super blazed before he edits. So
yeah, there you go.
And writes and shoots and hires actors.
It was totally half baked then. Hey.
Okay, well. Otherwise, look, I like the movie. Today's rating system, I guess, will be out of walruses. How many walruses will you give this out of 5 walruses?
Okay, I have to go with 1.5 for the schizophrenic storyline.
Okay, so 1.5 out of 5 walruses. I give it like 3.5 out of 5 walruses. But, like, not, like, the third 2. Walrus is in the bodysuit. So you don't really know if it's, like, a real walrus or not. And then the half a walrus is the dead, like, serial killer.
Oh, yeah. That was a weird scene.
Look, I wouldn't give it a 4. I wouldn't give it a 5. Whatever. I mean,
It worked as a story.
If you enjoy watching movies and you don't mind watching something a little different and have a little bit of an open mind and can get over sort of some ridiculous things and a whole bunch of other things, probably.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, if you don't take life too seriously, I think you could enjoy this movie.
I recommend, if you're just a casual moviegoer, watch it with friends. I find that that was why I was disappointed that none of our friends came, because that was what made Sharknado enjoyable. It was a terrible film.
You can't watch Sharknado by yourself, really.
You can't.
I don't think you can.
No, I don't think
I pity you who has watched it by his or herself, because shame. That's like masturbating, I guess. No, it's like going to a bar and drinking alone. Yeah. That's what watching Sharknado is like, watching it alone.
It really is, because I think this film is much more, if you're just like, you like B movies and you like just talking throughout B movies, watch it with friends. It'll probably make it 1,000 times more.
Because again, the same thing with Evil Dead. pretty sure there were a lot of naysayers in Evil Dead 2, and I mean, in the mainstream, Evil Dead 2 is not that popular, but in the underground, in the cult classic stuff, like, you know, the cultists, I don't know what you call cult movie watchers, but they love that movie. You know, it's like you get those people who love those movies, and that's what this movie is. It's aimed at those people who don't want to watch another popcorn film, who don't want to watch another mindless action shooter movie with a lot of special effects. This is an interesting discussion movie that has an interesting premise that I thought was well edited and executed, and so for a whole bunch of things I give it a pretty, I think a 3 out of 5 is already a pretty good score. The reason why I bump it up to that half is because I appreciate what he's done. I can't give it a 4 out of good conscience because it's
clunky in areas.
It does what it has to do. It tells a good story. It tells a different story, not necessarily a good story. It tells a different story, and I think that's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Alright, well, until next time, you guys. I don't know what movie we'll watch next. You'll know it on the list of videos in my channel. It'll be later. Bye!